Hey, good morning or afternoon or evening. I'm Chase Cunningham or Dr. Cunningham or Dr. Joe Trust, whatever. I'm here with someone who's a good friend of mine and someone that I respect immensely, Alon Jackson from Asterix Security. Alon, do us a favor and give us a quick background on who you are and the cool things that you do.
Sure. Thank you, Chase. First of all, thank you for having us and having me here. It's always a pleasure. Very quick about us. Been running for 4 years now, really kind of coined the term non-human identity in the market. The last year, obviously, focusing on everything agents being the most interesting type these days of non-human identities. Yeah, raised 85 million to date, around 100 employees. For me, it's starting to feel like a big company. Exciting times. Yeah.
So let's run down the rabbit hole on Agentic and NHI and whatever else, because I would say you guys were early to the mix on NHI as a threat vector and a problem area, and now it's evolved into where this goes as far as Agentic. Like, kind of just for the people that don't understand it, like define the differences in what Agentic is.
Yeah. So I think it starts even before that, right? Like we had machine identity for years, right? Really looking mainly on certificates, SSH keys, things that are maybe more on the TCP/IP layer, looking at how VMwares and machines, IoT, maybe devices interact with each other, how services and servers interact with each other. And then really the NHI was to grasp the whole SaaS ecosystem, microservices, cloud applications, right? How these kind of interact and really explode the amount of access that we have of machines, services, anything that doesn't have a heartbeat. A funny story is that we actually started with an interesting name, let's put it this way, of integration access management. And that's how we went out to the market. We raised our seed round. We hired our first marketing leader, and she was like, "Okay, this is a shitty name, put it bluntly, or a shitty tagline, I would say, right? Like the problem is the same, the challenge is the same, the solution is really focused on the same, but the tagline obviously is not compelling. We changed it to app security, so looking at how apps connect to each other. Obviously, more of a catchy name, right? And then the next evolution of that was really honing in back to maybe access management, but really honing into the identity. Which a funny story there is that I was against actually non-human identity to start with. I said that it sounds a bit too soft, like not humane. And I offered non-user identity because we have user access management, user accounts, right? So non-user sound a bit more technical to me. But obviously I was wrong. We ran a survey. Our customers, prospects, advisors, everyone was kind of leaning onto non-human identity. So perfect, guys. I was wrong. Very quickly understood that, and it's exciting to see that NHI had become kind of its own term. Obviously, with things like the Salesforce drift 3 weeks ago, that was a big one. And there's been so much, like almost every month, every few weeks, we have a big attack that's really a response to having so many third-party services, right, connecting to the enterprise these days. And then obviously looking at AI, right, and agentic, there's just more to lose and more to gain. Like the productivity is that more exciting that we have more connections, more adoption. Everyone wants to try it out. It's not just on the personal level. Enterprises understand that they have to be, on top of the latest productivity trends. Otherwise, they'll lose competition, right? So that just enhances what we've been seeing in the last few years. Sorry.
So then I think it was actually you and I when we were in New York, we're talking about this, and I want to say you kind of coined this term about the fog of more, and I think that that's really where we're at with all this stuff is more is more is more. A so prescriptively, do you think agentic and NHI is just an inherent risk? Is it a benefit? Like how strategically should people think about this stuff? Because everywhere I look, someone's doing some agentic something.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it might sound a bit harsh, but my firm belief is that we should consider agents today in the same manner like we consider insider threats. And the reason is because they're really, and goes back, by the way, back to zero trust, right? They're digital employees, right? They're virtual workforce, right? That we already have. It's not in the future. And obviously they're tasked to write emails on our behalf, transfer money, halt production, change code. There's, stories all around Reddit about code freeze that wasn't really code freeze and data got, right, deleted and stuff like that. Obviously not a lot of emotions when you ask the agent, why did he do what he did, right? So really treating these new employees, if you like, right, that are actually performing actions in a at least a semi-autonomous way, um, really goes down to monitoring the activity, understanding the permissions, making sure that it's governed, and we know what to expect, and we know when things go stray. And it's such a new technology where the truth is, even the vendor who created the service, right, is not 100% sure how the agent is going to behave in any scenario. So really monitoring this in a similar way, like we would monitor, right, employees potentially, I think is a good aspect. But going down to what you asked, I think it's a necessity, obviously. I think we're all, enjoying and benefiting from this technology. The question is, how do we enable this, right, in a responsible manner? And that's kind of the whole premise, right? And our really kind of a grand vision at Asterix was always to enable the latest and greatest adoption. Obviously, these days it's not there's an app for that. These days there's an agent for that. So like the terminology changed, but the challenge, right, just became a bit more challenging and more complex and more pressing, right? And again, the productivity just boosted outside of the roof.
So agentic stuff, I love the kind of referencing insider threat because that's how I think about it. And then, I mean, if you think about me, like I'm one potential employee, I could potentially create hundreds of risky or insider threat things because you can create an agent for anything. Like I'm working on some by the breach stuff, and I've built a little bot that does things and whatever else. And I mean, it took me. I don't know, I'm a really shitty coder, by the way. It took me like, I don't know, 30 minutes to build this thing. And then I'm out there doing stuff with it. And, you could have one for travel. You could have one for making sure your kids do their chores or digitally, whatever, all that stuff. So the scope and scale is probably the real issue here. And that's why this can't be done with Ricky the intern and a spreadsheet, right? You have to have technology for this problem.
Absolutely. And more so, the regular technology and regular processes that this technology, enables, really doesn't scale, right? So if we do access reviews, okay, you cannot do manual access reviews for millions of agents, right? We're going to have fleets of them. And how do you onboard and offboard, right, an agent? It just doesn't scale. It doesn't really go along with the processes that we used to have for enterprises, for identity solutions that are focused on humans, right? Not to talk about the technology stack, the protocols, right? The types of vulnerabilities, the types of behaviors that are, really kind of all different in any aspect, like looking at actually how does the enterprise manage, right? The life cycle management of these digital employees. Very, very different for sure. Another very interesting aspect, related to what you just said is the concept of ownership. There's a lot of different models, right? There's a model of owning a pet. Okay, so basically, you can't have a stray dog. Like someone has to own it, and you need to tag it, and you have, accountability and responsibility on, that. And another model is a car, right? So who owns the car? And then when it comes to these agents, right? Well, if the agent really halts production, can you sue it? It's not a legal entity, right? Is the agent to blame? Do you fire the agent, right? So making sure that every non-human identity, obviously every agent, right, has an owner is something that we've been doing, with the largest enterprises in the world for years now, and it really scales very good, right? And even more importantly, right, into the new machine learning machines because of the non-deterministic nature, right, of their behavior. So they might perform the same action tomorrow in a different way because they learned, because the circumstance, the environment, changed, right? And this, may cause a lot of interesting scenarios where you might want features such as a human in the loop or a 2FA, right, for agents to perform a specific actions. Yeah, just in a nutshell, of course.
So so two sides of this question, I think. One is, in your opinion, and I have mine, I think, should there be like an entirely different governance model for agentic and AI, which is one question. And then the other question really is, that's a really great point to make about how the hell do you offload or offboard an agent? Where does this go in the realm of kind of enterprise operations? Because, we see like companies laying off thousands of people, and this is not specifically an Asterix security question, but this is, you're a CEO. You see companies laying off thousands of people because agents are now taking that job. But to your point, the agents are dynamic and they're continually changing what they do and whatever. Like that human side of it, if Chase is going to screw up, it's at Chase speed, right? Which is relatively slow and, barely functional. But when we're talking about agents, these things are doing it at machine speed. So where is the I guess the boundary of what this should look like for a business?
Yeah, I think that's exactly where the legacy identity solutions really just do not fit the challenge, right? The speed, again, even just the cultural aspect, right? The whole, process, as we talked about, of managing these new types of identities. They just have a different set of challenges and problems versus the human. Sometimes there's not even someone to ask. There's a service account that's connected to this, a service that is doing something. And hey, you know what? The service has been a stupid service for a while, but it's becoming more and more AI enabled, right? It's becoming a smart service, and it might become an agent. Do we know of it, right? Did the vendor tell us that, this connection that we had to our CRM had become, an AI connection? And truthfully, I think today maybe 20% of our applications or services are AI. Looking a year or two ahead, this is not like 5 or 10 years ago, right? Like from now, really, like 2 years from now, I think 80% of our applications and services, right, will be AI enabled. And like you and I don't think we'll suffer from stupid apps anymore, because I want to be able to talk with it in natural language. That's how we expect in 2 years from now to interact with our tools. And then as these tools become again less predictable or more autonomous, right? We need to have the enterprise need to have a centralized way to govern, right? One, what kind of agents do we actually trust or not, right? Who's behind this agent? What vendor created it? What's the guardrails for it? What can it do? It cannot do. Again, who owns it? Who's responsible for it? Do we have a human in the loop where we need it to be? Does the agent have more permissions than users who are using it, right? A lot of questions who are less relevant maybe in the the old world, right? And much more relevant and pressing nowadays. So yeah, enterprises are really kind of grasping, the magnitude of the challenge, and kind of getting more and more of these needs in place as they're adopting more and more. We're seeing a lot of adoption around engineering, R&D, the digital developers, of course. Another area we're seeing a lot is the customer success departments, really adopting these technologies very much. And I think our a responsibility right now with our customers, right, is to go on this journey, right, and really build for them according to what we're hearing, their challenges are, right. So that's kind of, again, it's like the same vision, the same mission, but really kind of going on this exciting, I think, IT journey that we as a generation are having, right, with our customers.
Yeah, I think what's also very interesting too from the kind of business side of this equation is the gap for people being able to be, call it market leaders, used to be kind of built on whether or not your company's people were able to work faster and more effectively and optimally than the next competitor in the space. Now, with agentic and with this kind of, call it, I don't know, maybe virtualization of the workforce, the scope of what you have to do to be better than the competition here is shrunk exponentially. So now it's like everyone is clawing for every single inch that they can get, which drives people, you could be sitting in a chair, to try and create other agentic solutions so that they can win. Like I picture this almost an arms race going on in business now that is powered entirely by agentic, and it worries the hell out of me because it is a giant risk on a whole lot of levels. Like you said, insider threat, intellectual property, spillage, shared secrets, all that stuff. I think people really have to understand just how big of an issue and risk we're looking at. Is that a fair statement?
I think it is. I think it is. However, I'm more optimistic maybe, and I'm actually very excited about it. When people started riding trains, there were many religious groups who said that if you ride a train, you'll get demons in your blood, and humans are not supposed to, go over, more than 50 miles an hour or whatsoever. Like, we're not built to it biologically, right? And obviously trains were really a disaster to start with. So, right, the accidents were, astronomic, and, happened quite often. And it was, and when you look at cars, right, before, seat belts and brakes and, things that really became more and more sophisticated. So it's just the same thing, right? This is the new technology, right? That we as a society, we as, enterprises, are riding this crazy train, right? And I think, we're mature enough. I think that's, the lucky part, right? We're mature enough to have innovations such as Asterix and others, right? That are building quickly together with our customers, right? And putting in place the right brakes to make sure that we can really ride this journey and not halt the business as much as possible, right? Again, I think there's a lot still to learn. A lot of agents are not actually exactly, fulfilling their full potential, right? And I just shared about a few departments where we're seeing more adoption and things are really accelerating. Other departments, are still maybe lagging behind, not because of the business unit itself, but maybe, the technology and its a compatibility, right, with the either compliance or the way of work, right, or compatibility with the type of work that's being done in that department. But it's to come. It's to come for sure. It's gonna take over every aspect of our life. But I'm very excited about the possibility, right, that this brings. So really, upgrading each and every one of our roles, even for me as a CEO and a founder, right? How do I operate when I have a fleet of agents that are, that I own personally, right, and work for me as assistants in different sectors. Um, and yeah, I think this challenge also goes to us as personal users of these technologies, right? We want to know, what is the agent doing, what permission does the agent has, what did it actually perform, right? We will want some kind of governance, right? Once this becomes very, very prevalent also on our personal life.
Yeah, I think I can't remember who said it, but I think the phrase "brakes make you go fast" is very applicable here, right? Because if you don't have brakes on a Maserati, you can go somewhere really fast, but stopping is kind of important too. You need control. Uh,
Exactly. And we all like fast cars, right? So
yeah, right. We all like fast cars, but you also like to live and get home. Brakes help you do that. What does good technology look like in the realm of managing agentic? Because you guys are doing cool things in that space. Like how do you do this correctly?
yeah, yeah. So we look at the basic needs in three pillars: discover, secure, and deploy. So the first piece is really the governance, right? The discovery. So understanding what is out there, who connected what, who's using what permissions does it have, how it's behaving, so on and so forth. By the way, understanding what's a stupid app, what's a smart app, what's AI enabled, what's actually an agent, like understanding and analyzing these identities is very important on the first one. The second one is really security. So anything from posture management, least privilege, access restrictions. So making sure that these, services can only access from specific maybe locations, right, or preset policies. Looking at behavior analysis, anomaly detection on top of that. That's critical in this realm. So that's the discover, that's the secure element. And the last one is really the deploy. So earlier this month, we actually released ACP. So ACP stands for the Agentic Control Plane, which basically gives our customers an ability to have a third option that's no more just connect or don't connect, right? But now you can actually connect it in a secure ways. When Chase comes to the CISO and said, "Hey, is this the latest and greatest cool thing my friend told me about? I have to use it. I want to connect it to our CRM. I want to connect it to my email. It's gonna help us be 100x more productive." Really, the answer boils down to going back to questionnaires, right? Stuff like that. But it's binary, right? Connect or don't connect. With ACP, we're actually helping customers have a third option. Sure, please connect it, but please connect it via ACP, and it really enables the adoption with an enforcement, right? With a policy center that you can actually monitor, govern, shrink permissions, make sure that the connection is secure. You can take the analogy all the way to like VPNs, right? Or secure access, secure browsers, SASE, you can call it different names, but there are different technologies for human employees to connect to resources in a secure manner, right? When you look at the non-human employees, right, they do not have the secure access to connect to sensitive resources for the enterprise, and that's what ACP is here to solve for.
And so that is a control plane that you guys are making available. I'm guessing very API driven, policy enabled. And the goal of that is to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the goal of that is to say, look, enterprise or business agents are coming your way, leverage this control plane, and you can actually use those things, but you're minimizing the risk and optimizing the control side of it. Is that a fair statement?
Exactly. There's the few scenarios we're seeing. Some enterprises where the business just rushed and connected, and then security is an afterthought, right? So, you can actually be an enabler by saying, okay, let's fix this, right? There's a tool to actually fix this. We don't have to be a blocker, right? That's kind of the afterthought piece. The second piece is really customers coming to us and saying, hey, I really want to enable, I really want to connect this, right? Sometimes it might even be a security tool, right? A lot of these security tools are like octopus solutions, right? They connect to different resources, aggregate, analyze, and provide some, overall governance value on top of that. So in order to connect these tools, right? This is a tool that's actually enabler to connect from the get go, right? In a secure by design kind of approach.
And is this agentic stuff? I mean, is this only an enterprise problem, or will this be an SMB problem over time? Because that's where I think a lot of call it disconnectedness happens in the space. Is we're all trying to serve the big players because they have big problems and there's value there. But I mean, anyone anywhere with 30 minutes on their day can create agents, and there's the kind of pass through risk of it may not be the enterprise, maybe the enterprise is totally bolted up and secure as it could possibly be, but they have a contractor. I'm a contractor and I've created some agent and it works its way and weasels things through. Is this going to be a SMB problem in the future too?
100% it already is, I think. However, it is clear to say that the large enterprises again have more to lose, right? And every big bank, every a government agency, everyone wants to use the new technology, right? It's there. So really, the pressing need is there because they will not be able to use modern technology, right? If they'll won't have the right brakes and seatbelts for it. So obviously they're the first adopters in that sense. But the SMBs, some of them have more of the problem today, some of them have less of the problem today. But for sure, it's an all in all problem. And as I said before, I think it's also a B2C, if you like. Even in our personal life, right? Look, already we have all these apps on our mobile phone, and different web applications that know everything about us and do things on our behalf. And there's a lot of privacy concerns on the personal side of things. Again, with the world of agents, it's just going to explode.
Yeah, I mean, my 2 cents on privacy is privacy died when the internet became a, thing, but it is what it is. Like you're using it for whatever purpose you're using it for, but anyone that I can help you be secure, but private is a whole other issue. So I think these agentic things are making privacy even more interesting. So
Absolutely. I think that privacy people associate it many times with information, data leakage, and stuff like that. I think the interesting premise with agents is actually much more than that. It has nothing to do with data moving or data being exposed, but more about the actions, right? So once the agent can, contact your bank account, right, or contact your friends and family on your behalf and perform actions on your behalf, that becomes much more severe. For large enterprises, that's business continuity, right? For your personal life, it could mean that you're locked out of your accounts or, drained out of money, right, without you even knowing.
yeah, well, joke's on them. I have no money to drain. So. So, kind of last couple of things here, like where do we go from here? Give me the Asterix and Alon preview of kind of what you think is happening over the course of the next couple of years.
Yeah, so I think enterprises will change for sure. We're gonna have this mix of human and non-human, and obviously non-human are already outnumbering, but it will keep outnumbering in a bigger pace, right? There's a case to talk about, the first enterprise that has like one employee and the rest is a virtual employees, but it's actually considered an enterprise, right? So I know it's a bit extreme, but just kind of to stress the point, right? of where we're going in a few years from now. And looking at these type of organizations that are obviously much more effective, much more economic, right? We would all want to invest in a company that's, proved itself for a decade with only hiring virtual employees and being much more efficient, right? That any kind of a human based organization can be. They work 24/7. They don't have, vacations. They don't feel, I don't know, they're not sick, right? There's so much to say about the productivity, obviously, of these kind of organizations, and then really being to manage the full scope of this, right? Both from the security side, both from the management side. It's identity security first and foremost, but identity management as well. Human resources, right? Like what kind of processes, what kind of protocols are we having around that? And yeah, and how do we manage this hybrid not being on-prem and cloud, hybrid by being human and non-human, living together in harmony, and security. So I think it's a very, very exciting days, exciting challenge. And it's kind of, clear that the world is going there, right? Not clear 100% of how are we, supposed to, manage and secure this world. And that's what makes it so exciting.
Yeah, it's never a dull moment in cyber, that's for sure. And it's the speed and pace of this stuff is just getting so crazy fast. So, folks that listen to this, if you're looking to solve the problem around agentic or non-human identities, Alon Jackson and his folks at Asterix, they were what I would consider to be very early. They saw this problem long time before anyone else did. Reach out to them. This is not an endorsement. They don't pay me for this. I'm just saying, like, I know these people. They do their job very well. They can solve your problem. So reach out
Brilliant.
to the folks at Asterix. They're great people. So Alon, thanks for jumping on here, man, and
Great.
best of luck with ACP.
Thank you.